Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh, you know what? I always forget to get the music ready. So I start this out and I don't have the music going, and then it's like, oh wait, I gotta open it up, I gotta navigate over to here. I gotta switch it off of what I was listening to on Spotify before. It's usually bass music these days. There we go. There we go. Okay. So it is Tuesday. We got a shortened holiday week, but markets seem to be doing okay. Let's go to the charts. Don't have anything too big. We got some Canadian numbers coming up in 4 minutes, but nothing too big. We do have existing home sales. That's a relatively major event for us this morning. But okay, so you can see S&P 500, pretty good rally yesterday. It was really, really good. Now they are clawing a little bit of it back, but nothing too bad in the overnight session. Here is ZN. ZN, an auction yesterday that was amazing, and that kind of helped spark the rally over in equities. I kind of warned you guys, didn't I? The 20-year auction keeps going well because it's special at auction. So the market is probably overreacting to that number. We give it a little bit of it back, but we're still well above those levels over here in the treasuries. Oil taking a huge plunge and then a huge jump and another huge jump, and now just a little bit of a pullback. So I don't know what oil's doing. It's all over the place. Maybe it's turning. Natural gas on the downside. Gold and silver actually heading back up again towards highs. I mean, rates have been coming down. So, and we got Kappa. Kappa had a great day yesterday after having a great run overall for a while. So, you know, I have to kind of zoom out a little bit to see where we're at. You know, it's still kind of within its range, but that's a pretty good rally that they've been getting over there in Kappa. And there has been a lot of work over in China to try and shore up their economy and so forth. So I think you're seeing the results of that in copper demand. Here's Bitcoin. You know, not really actually doing a whole lot. I saw there was action by the SEC, I think, against Kraken Exchange, was it? But no reaction from Bitcoin. And then the dollar continues to be on the downside, heading towards 103. So that's where we're at. And again, it is a shortened holiday trading week. So I don't know if we'll get any really good trades here in the treasuries. I think that it's going to be pretty tight. You can already see from the opening action past 10 minutes, pretty tight. No indications that there's big players that really want to move it out there yet. And that might be the case over here in the S&P 500 as well. I'm expecting a little bit more range bound of a day today. But I'm just going to keep nursing this along. I've done pretty good with it so far, and my intention is to keep it open until about the first week of December, unless there's some sort of really big shift comes in. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of am thinking I shouldn't have taken this swing trade because it's really messing with me. Like, hey, Seth, you're way better at the swing trades. You catch the swing trades and they just go. I always felt like over here in the treasuries, I was always trying to get one and have it go for a little bit and turn it into a swing, and that like was never really working. And maybe I should, for those trades, just keep them as swings. Maybe I could do a little bit more work on that. Okay, so here's the Canadian numbers. They are pushing the treasuries down a little bit. Most of these numbers that well, okay, Chicago National Activity Index negative 0.49 versus 0. All of the Canadian numbers that I'm seeing, well, CPI trend 3.5 versus 3.6. I don't know. So Han, I'm new here. We know. Well, we're glad to have you. I have the same group of guys here pretty much every day. So when somebody comes in and chats and they're new, I recognize, I don't recognize the name. I immediately know you're new. So that's what we about. We got a tight community here. Okay, so noticing here off of this news, does appear to be some selling in the 30-year. I think it was kind of a little bit maybe before the news. But I saw a big change in the cumulative delta in the 30-year here. It could be because it looks like they're putting on a spread trade. So I'm immediately questioning the flows that I had set out there. I said, well, I don't think that we'll see too much interesting activity over in the treasuries. It doesn't look like anybody's out there willing to move the market. But here, of this Canadian number, I am starting to see signs of a steepener. And I am seeing the yield curve move. You know those polls online portals put on their websites, is there a tool to verify if those polls are real or fake? So anytime that you see an online poll, there's the possibility of somebody setting up a bot and spamming that poll. There's people that just love to do that kind of crap. So now it's interesting thing is that on Twitter, you have to be like a paid member to participate in polls now. So maybe those are more accurate. Do you mainly take your trades off the DOM and the news? So the way that I would say it is that what you're seeing on the DOM, or more broadly speaking, order flow, is one of 5 components that I believe are necessary for an effective and functioning trading system. I have a video about this. It's like 4 or 5 videos back, but and I forget the exact title of it, but basically the five components are this. One is the order flow. Okay, and that means an analysis of all of the orders. So remember, what do I define as order flow? Order flow is a study of the orders placed in the market, and in order to do order flow, it has to be informed by the market depth. So with market depth, I can tell if a market order is a market buy or a market sell. I can see where limit orders are being placed, and that allows me to give a full analysis of the order. So that's what differentiates order flow from price and volume, for instance. Okay, or volume profile, because volume profile is just orders at price. It doesn't necessarily say whether they're buying or selling. Okay, so order flow is one. One is volatility. Okay, so there are some stylized behaviors of volatility, such as the volatility clusters, that we can utilize and take into account in our strategies. Third one is correlations. So statistical arbitrage is a big thing. That's how a lot of quant firms are making their money. We have to look at correlated instruments and see how the value of our instrument is changing relative to the value of those correlated instruments. Number 4 is risk management. Obviously, you have to be able to manage your risk and minimize your losses. And number 5 is the most important, and that is predictors of order flow. So this is the category that news would fall into, but there's lots of other things other than news that could potentially predict order flow. Just as an example, if I go on TV and I start talking about a stock, is that news per se? I don't know. Maybe that is news. Let's say that I hold a conference. Let's say that I hold an investor conference and I talk about a stock. People go out and buy that stock because they've heard about it. That's not necessarily news, but it is something that drives orders, right? Maybe there's an index fund out there and they have to rebalance their portfolio. That's not necessarily news, but it is something that can be predicted and you can use to predict orders moving, right? So we kind of go and look at all of the things that we know that day that could be driving business, right? So today, today not a very good example because it's a shortened holiday week. All we had was Canadian numbers, which don't really matter too much to the market. Shortened week, not expecting too much business. There's not too many flows for us to predict and try and grab onto and make a trade from. But then I can utilize all the other things and I can say, well, I look at the correlations and I can see, oh, well, there is something going on in the yield curve though. Somebody sold the 30-year really hard. So there is a flow out there. Somebody's putting on a yield curve trade. I don't know where it's coming from, so I didn't predict it. But so I'm a little weary about trying to jump on board that trade. Wow. So you get what I'm saying? You take all of those things and you combine them together. And then if you see an imbalance, if it's a situation where it's like all of the things that I have today suggest that they're going to buy. And so there's probably going to be an imbalance. I want to buy before them, right? And so I will use the order flow, volatility, correlations, and all of those other things to try and get myself the best spot that I can in anticipation of that flow that I believe is coming. Makes sense? So I think the innovation here, if I want to call it an innovation, I don't really think that this was innovation from me. Oh, you're from Canada? Oh, that's cool. Where in Canada are you from? Yeah, I think the thing that I've added, because I do feel, it's kind of weird to think about this sort of a thing, because to like brag about like what you've done and how are you influencing thought, it seems super egotistical to me, right? But I am literally coming in here and looking at like, what do you see people say in the retail trading space? And what do I know? And trying to evolve the retail trading space. Oh, you're in Vancouver? Okay. It's been a while since we've had anybody from Vancouver. Usually when we get Canadians, it's, the other side of the country. But, I'm looking at what's there and trying to push things along. And so one of the big limitations that I see retail traders do is they want to just latch on to one little thing, right? They want to say, I want to see this one chart pattern, and I'm just going to trade that one chart pattern. And, maybe that worked 20, 30 years ago, but markets are really sophisticated and competitive, and it seems that sort of a thing is not sophisticated enough to really be competitive in this market. Okay, so now they're selling it a little bit harder here in the treasuries. Almost as though maybe some news came through, but I'm not seeing any news. Twitter's kind of giving me issues here, by the way. Let me hold on. Let's try this again. Something went wrong. So now I just can't log into Twitter at all. No, hold on. Something went wrong. So when I try and log into Twitter, it says that I can't. You complained about Elon and now he blocked you? You know what? I would don't get me started on something else. I got to finish this thing. Okay. The market is complicated. So you kind of have to combine everything that we have available. And those are 5 things that we know that we have like research and are proven behaviors of the market that we can take into account and possibly improve our positioning. Now, unfortunately, I don't have like a super strict, like, okay, you do this, and then that means that you get in. It's not like a trading system per se like that. You are taking all of this information into your mind and using your machine learning processing of your frontal cortex to come up with a decision. Okay. Now that means that you got to practice it, right? Because that's all physical processes that are going on in your head, neurons that are connecting together and new neurons that are being created and so forth. So it requires practice. And frankly, I would say that it probably takes multiple years before you're really good at combining all that information together and getting precise trades, but it can be done. Weather is gray and rainy, but still a bliss compared to how frozen the rest of the country is. Is it really cold up there? It's going to be really cold in Canada this year because of El Nino, right? So yeah, it's going to be a weird year for weather. Okay, so there's a big stack there at 26.5. Showing up right as the 10-year is kind of pushing through a new low. It's very, very curious. There we go. Now it's giving me code. Oops, I did it wrong. There we go. There's another few ticks. Well, I'm just gonna let this go because I certainly was not anticipating any kind of order flow like this. And it's a little scary to me not knowing what's going on. Okay, it looks like they updated their decks here. They updated tweet deck, it looks like. Display. Small. Visual scale. Keep it really small. Lights out. There we go. Looks like they forced me over to the new version. Okay. Aha! Politico, U.S. has brokered a deal to free dozens of hostages held in Gaza. That's the story that I'm hearing. I did not hear that on Financial Juice. Could that be why the treasuries are selling off? Is the less geopolitical concern in the Middle East causes the treasury to sell? I'm just gonna be hands off. I'm gonna pass off on this trade. So the only piece of news that I'm getting is that the U.S. has brokered a deal to free dozens of hostages from Gaza. That's about the only thing. And then, of course, there was all of the Canadian news, but I don't know. They didn't move immediately after that. And I don't see anything in that news that seems really significant. But if it's about the hostages in Gaza being freed, why would the S&P 500 be selling here? That doesn't make much sense either. TLT has some puts that need to be decayed? Maybe. It's really interesting how you saw it first in the 30-year and before the news, by the way, and then afterwards it got hit. So it must be, it really, that kind of points to it being Gaza, because this piece of news did not get released across the market all at once. So, you see something on Politico, it looks like Politico broke the story. You see it on Politico, you immediately turn around and sell the 30-year, It's plausible. It's a plausible theory. It doesn't completely fit, in my opinion. But that's why I think that this is a good reason for me to just not hit it, right? Like I need to be able to know what the driver is and how much order flow is actually going to drive it. Because, I could try and go for the continuation here, and that's all of the orders that you're going to get out of it. Yeah. Well, so how can we try and... Let's just assume for a moment that that is what the market is reacting to. And then how would we explain the movement that we're seeing right now? Well, less geopolitical risk would generally mean that bonds would come down, right? Like people were buying bonds because of the geopolitical risk as a flight to safety. People were buying the dollar as a flight to safety. Well, except for that the dollar is moving up as well. Well, let's just say people were buying the bonds as a flight to safety. They don't need them anymore and they're selling them. Now, you're selling the treasuries. That's higher interest rates, and that's bad for stocks. And maybe that's why stocks are moving down on the correlation. Because it does seem to me that if that was the news and we thought that tensions in the Middle East were going away, I would expect to see treasuries sell, S&P 500 buy, and dollar index sell. But that's not quite what we're seeing, are we? Yeah. SPOOS is selling because it's risk off. I'm just saying it could be that the trade is only happening in the treasuries and the S&P 500 is just reacting to its correlation with treasuries. So because interest rates went up there, the S&P 500 sells off a little bit. That's about the best justification I could do for it. But I do think that the fact that they're not going the directions that I would have thought suggests that maybe the move down was not related to the news from Gaza. Okay, Japan government tells residents to take cover from North Korea missile threat. Well, I'm not seeing any flow off of that headline, but I would expect treasuries to buy off of that one. They let Japan know ahead of time. I would watch gold. That's good. That's a good observation, or a good idea that it would be gold. Well, we were seeing a little bit of a spike in gold. There was a little bit of a spike in gold. This movement up here was before all of that. But then since then, it's been very kind of topsy-turvy wild. Red book in 5 minutes, yes. The market usually doesn't react to red book, though, because most of that information is already out. So I think that what you could be having here, though, is that probably the rest of the market is as confused as we are. So they did this interesting study where they looked for, these market events where the market really moved. And they found that when the market knew what it was, when the market knew that it was news, that the volatility died down faster than when they didn't know what it was. So if we don't know what it was, then we would expect this to go a little bit longer than it has, than it normally would, and it has, rather. If we don't know the news, then we would expect there to be volatility for longer, and that's what's happened. We've been volatile for the last 10-15 minutes. So something I'm seeing that is like the U.S. Army was at an anime convention this last weekend, and so now you're seeing all of these stories in the news about it. Almost every convention, especially job fairs that I've ever seen, there was the armed forces there in some form. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Army at conventions like an anime convention, for instance. The only thing that was unusual about that was that they had an Evangelion character at their booth too. Okay, that was a little weird. But other than that, that's just kind of the standard what the Army does. What else? We're also seeing people complain. I'm seeing the news media push that Donald Trump is a fascist narrative again. So actually a lot of activity on Twitter here this morning. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, so I want to backtrack there because there's a couple of things I want to talk about while we're trying to figure out what's going on here. Some people on Reddit are mocking your CPU cooler choice. Well, that's because they don't know that I have a 4U CPU case and it needs to fit in that case. And so having a low profile CPU cooler makes more sense. Because if I got a really big one, it would be, I guess I could get one that kind of puts up. And if it was pushing out in the back, that would probably be better. But the tolerances are super tight. What do you think about dark pool alerts? I haven't heard of. Is there some website or something that I'm not aware of that does things? What I would say is that people say dark pools kind of destroys order flow because that means there's activity happening that you can't see. But when things go on in the dark pools, that flow eventually makes it to the main exchange usually. I see top-down cooler. Yeah, well, the main thing was that it was low profile, right? And that's similar to the cooler that I'm using in my current machine. So I basically got the same one, except for that this one is black. That's the only difference. But it is like a positive airflow case. So if I could get a CPU cooler that fit and pushed it out the back, that would probably improve the cooling. But the top level, let's go look. What do you think about the rest of the machine, though? So what happened yesterday, we were talking about building a new computer, and I was looking at motherboards, and some of the features that I would want in a motherboard, like 10G internet, for instance, 10G LAN connection, you really had to pay out the nose for a motherboard. So I was like, well, let's go and put the rest of the machine together and see what we have left. And when I did that, I was like, well, I want 3 M.2 SSDs. I want 3 hard drives, and I want 64 gigabytes of RAM. And once I got all of that together with a 7600 Ryzen processor, that pretty much got me to what I wanted to spend. So I went with the most basic motherboard. You probably won't use the 64 gigabyte of RAM. Well, I think that when I'm back testing, I would. When I'm back testing, I use the 32 gigabytes that we have. So that's why I don't think that I'll use all 64, but it seems like 32 is not enough for me. Would probably make more sense to go to 48. Yeah. Well, but it's, you shouldn't need that much RAM, but NinjaTrader has some deficiencies, I think, in that, right? Because basically what ends up happening is it tries to load the whole data series and all of the different results into memory. And when you're doing like thousands or millions of results, you can't fit all that, right? Yeah, and I think that there's still some leakage. Larissa says using the genetic algorithm doesn't have the RAM leakage. Yeah. Well, one of the things is if I'm doing a optimization run, I will change a flag in the strategy that tells it to not record all of the trades. It basically only saves the end result, and that cuts down on usage a lot, and it makes it a lot faster. But if we're going to be using it for data processing, that's where the 64 gigabytes comes from. And then the 3 hard drives comes from, I want to have one hard drive for the operating system, 1 hard drive for the applications, and 1 hard drive for like the data. So I want to have I want to be recording the stream to disk, but I want that to be a completely separate disk from everything else. Right now I am doing that as well, but it's a slow disk. So I can't do if I want to record 4K, for instance, it seems that it's not fast enough to get a good result on that. Octavia says he's got a Ryzen 9 and 64 gigs. Well, I'm going for a 5, not a 9. Because the thing is that the PC that we have right now does things pretty okay. But we're like right on the edge, right? It's like I'm using all of the performance though. So if we upgrade to a new machine, then that'll give us a lot of buffer, and we should be able to do things like record better clips and things like that. And then this machine will become a Kubernetes cluster, and I will run an algorithm on that. So that the first one will be to run something that I already made, that transcribes everything that I say. So I made an algorithm in Python that transcribes everything that I say, but it slowed the computer down. It didn't work while I was streaming. So that's why I want to move it to a second box. So that's kind of like the main driver behind it. And I got to figure out if there's a way that I can make it so that there's a Kubernetes cluster and I can connect this other machine to it on demand. So that if I'm not doing anything else, I can have this computer join the cluster and really bring its processing power to bear too. But the thing is like, if I got rid of the extra hard drives and just went for one hard drive, that would probably save $150. And then less RAM, that would probably save $50 to $100. So I'm only getting like $200 extra out of that. And that doesn't allow me to get a nicer motherboard. So I think what I do instead is I get the RAM that I want, I get the drives that I want, and then in a year or two, when I decide that I want a faster processor, I can upgrade to a nicer motherboard. Is it the right time to buy something new? So yes and no. I think that the market has become a lot more fluid, so there isn't necessarily these times where, you know, if you buy it at just the right time, you really get the most out of your hardware. But one thing that is happening is that AMD has moved to a new socket type, the AM5 socket type. And at first, there wasn't a whole lot of options and they were really expensive, but now you can get those boards for like $180. So it's not insane anymore. It used to be you had to pay $250. So, you know, now I think that AM5 is reasonable. And there's a shift to new generation of RAM and new generation of PCI Express, right? So I'll have DDR5 and I'll have PCI Express 5. So that's kind of the difference. So that is something that does kind of make it advantageous to switch right now, because you're getting to new generations of architecture, which don't happen all the time. So let me show you the build. I don't know if I'm going to buy it on Newegg or not, but I went and I set it all up on Newegg. And I might have stuff in here that I need to get rid of, but so I'm going with the Gigabyte B650 Aorus Elite AX motherboard, which is the most common one. This Corsair power supply, which was recommended, it is also very common. There's a Ryzen 5 7600, which is kind of like best bang for your buck. It's on sale. And then two 970 Evos and one, it's further down here, this Corsair MP700. This is the PCI Express 5 one. And then 64 gigabyte memory. And then this low profile cooler. So if we wanted to get one that's not low profile, I have to go to where I get the case. Slager. So this is the case. In here are its specs. It says that it can use up to 158 millimeter. Oh, they have one. Is that what I have though? I think that's what I have. Oh no, it's not quite. Okay, let's look up that. NH. Oh, low height. Oh, but what's the difference between this one? Just different suppliers, I guess. NH-D12L low height dual tower CPU cooler. And it is, what is the height of it? Specs. Dimensions, 145. And I can get up to 158. Okay, I'll use this one. No, I don't want a protection plan on it. Good grief. And then we're going to remove this thing. Basically gets us to about the same price. Water cooling is not zero noise. It's just, it's kind of funny. The real advantage of water cooling is to be able to get like the cooling outside of your case. Like I remember when I was in college and the guys had water cooling, you would basically have a radiator unit that sat next to your computer case. I did use PC Part Picker actually. So here it is on PC Part Picker. So I could switch the cooler over here, I guess. Ba-dum. And come in here and get rid of this one. So it says on PC Part Picker. Oh, you know what? I was getting rid. It's take off the video card because I already own the video card. I just had that on there to make sure that it was all compatible. Okay, processor. Yes. Okay, and it says 1090. And that's basically what I'm getting on Newegg. There are some enthusiasts that still do that. Did you guys see, on Linus Tech Tips yesterday's video, they have something they call the compensator, which is like you buy a computer that just has the most expensive parts that they can find. And they had this case that was massive. Like the whole thing weighed like 100 pounds when they were done. And it was basically like the whole side of the case was a radiator fan, or was a radiator rather with fans. And they had a CPU cooler that had what do they call them? It's this thing where it actually actively cools. They use electricity to generate coldness. But it actually kind of like creates a ceiling. So like it keeps the CPU really cool until the CPU gets over a certain heat at which it can't keep up with it. But in order to use that, they had to have like this rubber insert that went on the motherboard because it would like create condensation and stuff. Isn't that wild? It was pretty crazy looking. I don't know. Here's the thing: is when I go in there and I do this, and I'm like, $1,000. I kind of don't want to do it. I'm kind of like, well, I'm not getting as much bang for my buck as I thought I would. I guess it's probably because of the motherboard and stuff. Maybe it's, if I get rid of these things. So like if I just got rid of these, get rid of the extra drives, right? Let's just change additional memory. Corsair Vengeance 32 gigabyte. Add that one. And remove the 64 gigabyte one. Okay, and that gets me to 855. I guess 855. I would think that a middle of the road performance, like bang for your buck kind of machine would be more like 750. So I'm still 150 higher than I would expect to spend. So I don't know if that's I guess that's not really a big deal. But it kind of makes me feel like, well, maybe I should just wait. And maybe on Black Friday there will be or maybe Cyber Monday there'll be an even better deal. Is kind of what I'm thinking. So, I don't know. I'm not going to buy it today. I just put it on there. But I'm interested to see what people think. if there was, you know, I thought. So I went and I posted on a Discord. Oh my gosh, there was like the build a PC subreddit has a Discord, but it was completely useless because all of the people in the helper channels were just arguing whether you should do Intel or AMD builds. You know, so whatever you put, they would just send you the Intel or AMD equivalent of it, and they didn't actually like question any of the individual choices, right? Can you get the middle ladder of the DOM on other traders? What do you mean? Oh, you mean the middle two columns? Do those exist in software other than Jigsaw? So yes. So Sierra Charts also has an equivalent. I believe that what is the Edge Pro X or whatever Edge Clear's platform, I believe, has one. ATAS has one. I think Quant Tower has one. Can you guys confirm that one for me? I think Quant Tower has one that's kind of, but not quite the same thing. I definitely think that Jigsaw has the best DOMs and the best features overall. It's $500 to buy the platform and then a $50 trading license after that. So it is a little bit more expensive than other platforms because other platforms, they'll still charge you $50 a month for it, but you don't have to pay upfront. But like, you get what you pay for. Your dollar index isn't working this morning, really? I don't know. You may be. So, what I would recommend you do is, if you go to, I'll show you the whole way, because if it's breaking, I want to know why and see if there's a bug fix we can make. So if you go to your NinjaTrader Control Center and you go New NinjaScript Output, some versions of NinjaTrader don't have that, but you probably do. NinjaScript Output, and you get a window like this. And look in that NinjaScript Output. Go over to your dollar index and like right click on it and say reload NinjaScript. You can also try reloading all historical data, but the key one is reload NinjaScript. That, or you just press F5. You see how there's a hotkey for it, and then see if a message pops out in the NinjaScript output, and that would help us understand, you know, why it was not working. Because if it's just like not displaying at all, like you just get like a blank chart, then you're probably going to get something in the output window. Okay. Now, one thing that I will warn is that it uses the expiration month of the main chart. So if you are putting it on an instrument that is not on the December contract right now, then it's not going to display properly. It's going to want, you know, like if you were on the January contract, it's going to go and try and load the January contracts for all of the FX futures and then not get it, right? And then the other thing, and since you were saying that it was working before, this probably isn't the issue, but you do have to have FX data from the CME to do it. So if you're only getting the indexes, a lot of people, they only get the data for the indexes instead of like the bundle. You want the bundle. But because if you're only getting the indexes, then you won't have that data. The chart is frozen. Oh. So I've had that happen before. Yeah, so that sounds like a bug. I don't know what causes it. I believe it's a bug in NinjaTrader 8, but basically sometimes on charts with multiple data series, NinjaTrader can crash on it. So, and it will do that. It will stall, and if you mouse over the chart, like nothing's updating, So when that happens, you just have to end task to NinjaTrader. You just have to completely restart NinjaTrader. And if you try and exit out of it, it won't like exit out. So you're going to have to go into the task manager, you know, Control Shift Escape, bring the task manager up. Oh, it opened up on the other screen. Bring the task manager up, find the process, end task. So you have to do that. Thanks for it. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. Because you know, I made those. The kind of the evolution of that was I made them for myself and made them for my own trading, and then people asked about them so often on the stream that I decided, you know, maybe I should make them available. And NinjaTrader approached me about making them available, but I didn't want to do it at the time. And then about a year later, then I told them, okay, I'll do it. And then I became a vendor for them and made them and put them out. And it was a lot of work to get everything up to their standards and my standards, because I've got a lot of QA stuff that I do for it. Took a lot of work. And then after I did it, I was like, well, I don't know, is anybody actually going to use this or not? And people do use it, but you know, it's not as many as I thought it was. We probably get like maybe 1 or 2 new people a month on that one. And it was a little disappointing, not because it was like, oh, I want to make more money, but it was more disappointing to me that it was like, well, here's a tool that like most retail traders don't have and they're not using it. And I feel like they need it, you know? And I tried to price it so that like everybody could have it. Oh no, you can do that now. So you may not have the newest version. So just go to the website and download the zip file again and like install it over top of it. Here, I'll show you how that works. I haven't messed with that in a while, so let's come and add a treasury. And we don't want to do it on a daily. Let's do it on a 5-minute chart. Did you have to code the tool? Oh yeah, it's all my work. It's all my work. It's kind of interesting that, you know, a lot of the things that I'm most proud of about my indicators are things that you might not notice. You know, I'm told that, for instance, that there are other spread indicators out there, for instance, but like I've gone and looked at them, they're not quite as good. So they don't have my extra little things. One of the, for instance, just as an example, the most clever thing that I did is for the order flow indicators that are included in that, they automatically export all of the data series to a file. And there's clever code in there that does it on its own. So if you add another data series, I don't have to make any other changes. You just add the data series and it will get output. Okay, so if I come in here and I add I'm pretty sure that I added this in there. Let's see. Spread candles. Oh, maybe I didn't. Oh no, it's right here. It's spread multi. Maybe I don't have that one included yet. Because I'm pretty sure that I had it. Well, maybe that could also be in here. Well, no, it must be in there. I don't know, you tell me. I can do it this way. I can just download it from the website and see if it's in there. Yeah, but basically that allows you to do a butterfly. I thought that I had it so that you could set it up to be like up to 5 lengths if you wanted. But apparently I didn't finish, so I guess I have some work to do. I will make sure to do that. This month would be a good time to probably do something like that. Because I wanted to have it set up so that, man, I'm like really like going, I could have sworn I already did this, but it's not there. Spread candles, spread multi. I just add all 3 of these. See, I thought I had it set up so that there was a drop down that said how many legs you wanted to have, and then it would update to show you the extra legs. But apparently I didn't get that far. I also thought I had changed this so that instead of having like a spread and spread candles, it was in one indicator. Oh, I did do that. Yeah, so you don't need the spread candles anymore. You just say, do you want it line and close or do you want it candles? So I must have changed that, and I changed because you see it's leg 0 and leg 1. Oh, no way. I did do it. Look, it's right there. Why am I not seeing this? You know what? I must just still be tired. I went to bed at like 8 o'clock last night. So I wake up at 5:30. So I got like 9 hours of sleep last night. But I'm actually like could feel a little something in my throat. So I think the poor night's sleep that I got the night before was making me sick. So maybe I'm not 100% because it's staring me right in the face right now. So you come in here and you say, I want 3 legs. And then it changes. Ah, see, it does work. Why am I being so stupid? Those other ones like that spread candles and that spread multi, those were just the predecessors to that. You won't see those ones when you download. But I'm pretty sure that if you download the latest version of the indicator suite, that you get multiple legs. So go check. Come back and tell me. It's kind of hard for me to check. Now that I'll have multiple machines, maybe I can do that sort of stuff. You downloaded it last week? Oh, okay. So then check. You know, you should just add the spread indicator, and then you should see that number of legs parameter. I guess I need to keep track. I need to like make some change notes is what I need to do. That way, when I put it out there, I can look at my change notes and go, ah, yes, okay, yes, I did do that. You should, another way to tell is I have this release and date down at the bottom. So you should see version 2.0. Anyways, I won't load it here on the chart. In fact, I should probably minimize this so we can see where the yields are at. Because we did retrace that move. You know, this is very interesting the way this is all played out. I'm still wondering if that move we had earlier was because of the Gaza news or not. If it was the Gaza news, the retracement here makes a lot of sense to me. Because the way that the market was moving off of it seemed a little bit bizarre. So for people to come in and say, nah, I don't think that makes sense. and trade it back up. That would seem to fit with what I would think should happen. By the way, I'm seeing Bitcoin's taking a little bit of a sell here. It's not too dramatic yet, but they're getting pretty close to yesterday's lows in Bitcoin. Okay, so where were we at? What were we talking about? Oh, so how much is your ideal build? So let's come back. I think an ideal build would probably be 2,500. Right? Because if I got, let's see if we got like maybe AMD combo here, for instance. Featured combos. I wonder if I would get a better setup if I did a combo. Yeah. Let's see, this sort of one, it makes a little more sense, right? Like an X3D processor. X3D processor with, you know, a nicer motherboard that has a 10G internet on it and stuff. Okay, so anyways, we can discuss the computer more in Discord if you have thoughts. Like, do you think that there's a different RAM or a power supply that you think would be better? They gonna bust the highs here, or it's kind of lining up to maybe bust the highs? I'm seeing gold take off here. Okay, yeah, so I want to go back to something that was earlier, which was like I couldn't log into Twitter and they're like, oh, you must have made Elon mad. I think it would be really interesting to talk to Elon Musk, because to me he kind of seems like one of those people that he's like a BSer that delivers. Basically, he'll come in and he'll make these grand promises, and when he's making them, he has absolutely no clue how they're going to accomplish those things. Like the Cybertruck is a dream, which is why it keeps getting pushed back. By the way, they've pushed it back another year, which is just crazy, right? He's just making stuff up as he goes along. So I think that some of the criticism about him is maybe undeserved or misunderstood. You know, like, he's probably autistic, so I think a lot of his behavior is like people not understanding that he's autistic. But I also see in him, though, like, I kind of wonder if he is discerning enough about what he is consuming online. And that's what I wanted to talk about. You remember, again, there's this idea in society that everything that goes on in your head is purely spiritual, right? That's the way that I would put it, is that, like, your thoughts are the thoughts of your spirit, and they only exist within that spiritual realm. So if you want to have different thoughts, just choose to think about different things, and then you have different thoughts and this sort of a thing, right? But the sciences and what we understand is that your brain is a living organism that is constantly changing. That's where, like, neuroplasticity and so forth comes along. Is neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to make new connections, right? Little kids have lots of brain plasticity because they're building that network to be able to navigate the world. So the way that you raise a child, especially in those, like, beginning years, from like 3 to 5, is really important, because that's them building a network, right? And humans, we have these really advanced frontal cortexes that are kind of like a machine learning network, just like these ones that we're using to do ChatGPT and all that stuff. is you build this network and then you pass data through it, and the neurons in the network adjust themselves based on the data that they're getting to form this network that does stuff that we don't completely understand, to be frank. So what basically the data that you're putting into the network matters, because that will affect the weightings and everything in that network. So things like how you raise a child, the culture of your society, these are the bases that we use for the models that we build in our heads that we use to interact with other people. That's why we have them, is because in order to have a personal interaction, that's a lot going on. There's the intonation, what they're saying, but then there's their intonation in their voice, the body language, the context, how other people are reacting. That's a lot of information. And what a neural network is good at is taking a lot of really separate pieces of information and coming out with a good answer very quickly. Okay? It's not very good necessarily at taking like a really long data series and getting something out of that, but it's really good at taking a lot of pieces of information and combining them together into an answer. And in order to be able to keep up with the conversation, you need that kind of network. That's why we've developed them, right? So if you want to change your thoughts, you're going to be creating new neurons and stuff. So yes, you can consciously think of different things, but it's going to require effort of you consciously thinking about different things over time for you to build new networks and for your brain to change. That's just kind of like the base kind of information you need to understand what I'm going to say here. But what we get from that is that the information that you consume matters. The information that you consume matters because you're taking all of that information and incorporating it into your neural network that you use to understand the world. And especially as traders, that's what I'm kind of advocating that you do, is you're taking these 5 things that we know work and you're using that as a basis for kind of that network. And then you put all of the information into that network and the weights adjust as you gain the experience, right? Now, that base understanding that we have really, really matters, though. If you don't have that, and instead you base your understanding on, let's say, price action, stuff that we have absolutely no data to support, then all of your conclusions are going to be completely different. And the whole way that you see the world and the market is going to be completely different because of the information that you're consuming is different. You're consuming information about price action instead of things about correlations, order flow, predictors of order flow, volatility, risk management, etc. Right? Okay. What I see in society right now is that people are not discerning about what they consume, which is to say they feel like that you can just consume anything and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have any effect on you. That's not true. Everything that you watch has some impact on you. And then on top of that, they're just not skeptical enough about what they're actually consuming. So like this woke ideology that's going through, people call it a mind virus. I think that that's an accurate depiction, but I think that we kind of need to take our understanding of that a little bit further. It's more than just a mind virus. It's a cultural virus, because the culture, again, is like this base network that we all have that we use as a basis for interactions between each other. So if the basis of your understanding of society is everything is about oppressor versus oppressed, right? And the oppressed are the good guys, by the way, then you're always going to interpret things in a way that allows you to see yourself as a victim. And you're always going to play in as a victim. So essentially, the model that you've been given, if you're in the woke ideology, that the model that the woke ideology gives you leads to failure. It leads you actively to failure because you always want to be the oppressed person. Do you see what I'm saying? And now everything that you're doing, everything that you're learning about business, everything about your experiences is going into this model with the context of oppressed versus oppressor. in a way that's not helpful to you, right? Elon, he seems to be kind of on this and understands this a little bit. But then I also see Elon as like, he'll consume other pieces of information on the right and isn't discerning about it on the right. For instance, the big controversy this past week was that he said something to the effect that Jews were hating on white people, essentially. That Jews were pushing anti-white propaganda, sort of a thing. Well, that's a far right kind of a thing that really comes from like the people that are really originating that stuff, or the anti-Semitic guys, right? That's basically like the real Nazis out there. I would call them crypto Nazis, but like who was this one guy? I can't even remember his name. It's almost like if I start using names, it might get the stream like throttled. I would bet, but you know, it seems to me like Elon is probably going on right-wing forums, probably browses patriots.win, for instance, and is absorbing the thoughts and opinions of people on patriots.win and is not properly questioning what he's getting. Not properly questioning, because he is saying some things that I know where they come from, and I know that they're not positive either. And that's the thing, is like, listen, Russia is out there pushing stuff, China is out there pushing stuff, the United States government is out there pushing stuff, right? This is like a cultural war, and you have to ask yourself, basically it used to be that, you know, your parents would give you the culture, and the culture was already established and it had been created from a success over time, and so you could trust the culture. It's not that anymore. Now we have people that are manipulating culture. So now you have to go and like actually analyze the network, essentially this mental model, to say, is this the model that is actually going to lead me to success and lead me to the things that I want? And you have to like actively question that, because you know that there's people like China and Russia and so forth trying to push you towards a culture that like objectively harms your country and makes you weaker. So you got to question all of it. And people on the right seem to think that like, oh, a right-wing culture is like immune to that. It's not. I'll give you an example. The thing that I see on the right that I hate the most is this idea that you should move to the middle of nowhere and just live off grid. Their dream is to move to the middle of nowhere and live off grid. Okay, so you want to abandon society and just leave the development of culture up to the woke leftists now, huh? Okay, that's really gonna fix things and make the world better, right? The whole problem is like we don't have a community. We don't have community anymore because people don't go to church. That was where community came from. And because we don't have that community, that makes us vulnerable to having our culture manipulated. And the answer to that is to just get away from it all instead of like actively working and creating a culture. Because listen, if you have successful culture will win out in the end. This is why I'm not as concerned about wokeism, because I know ultimately it's going to fail, because it's an ineffective culture, right? And everybody that's picking that culture up is less likely to be successful. They're not going to be competitive, you know? Yeah, don't move to the middle of nowhere. That's not going to make you happier. Do you know that most people that attempt to go live off grid give up on it? They'll go and buy it and try it for a while and don't like it and then come back. It's not the solution. But that's something that's pushed on the right that I think is not. You know, let's spend more time outdoors. Do things like hunting and camping and stuff like that. But don't move to the middle of nowhere. Okay, don't you think it's just the woke ideology being pushed in a year or two more than before? Well, so the thing is that this woke ideology has been pushed for a couple of decades now. So when I was in school, like 2005 to 2008, we had to have diversity classes and things like that. I don't think that they quite had it pushed so explicitly as like the oppressed versus oppressor and that sort of a stuff. That came along a lot more aggressively when George Soros started to push it during Obama's presidency, right? So, but it started, but like the seeds of it, like the academia coming up with this stuff, that happened much, much earlier. So it's been around for a long, long time. And it's just gotten to the point where it was a strong enough force on the left that it started infecting everything, right? Another thing to note is that I think there is some evidence to support that, like the transgender side of this ideology, or let's say the what is the term for it? It's non-binary. Basically questioning everything about sex was very much a thing on Tumblr. So that was like the 2008 to 2010 time period, I think. It was like Tumblr, and then there was that show Glee on TV that kind of made that popular. But it's been for a long time. It's been out there for a long time. And I think that part of what happened was that because of the court case that made gay marriage legal nationally, the left needed a new cause, essentially. Right? So that's what they turned their attention to. The thing is you could see it. I'll give you another example. I tell you, I'm a little ADHD, so what I will often do is I will see all of the connections to things in ways that other people don't necessarily see or care about. But you'll see when I kind of put these things together, how they all fit together into an understanding of the world that makes a lot of sense and can really be useful, right? Occupy Wall Street. This is a big part of Occupy Wall Street. The thing that people don't know about Occupy Wall Street is that it was all pre-planned. They think that it was just like one day some people decided to have a protest and it just kept going, and then more and more people joined in on that and that sort of a thing. That was not the case at all. It was very much a pre-planned movement that, because I remember, because I was trying to make I was really into Dig and trying to make things popular on Dig. And, a lot of that would be like people would message each other with stories to upvote and stuff like that, right? So I would get included in these networks, and some of those networks were pushing liberal propaganda, essentially. And so because I was added onto that, I saw the discussions about planning Occupy Wall Street probably a month before it happened. I knew that this protest movement was coming. And Gawker, they had, they owned all of these blogs that aren't as popular now, but they were really popular back then. They were all totally in on it, and they had all of this content prepared that were like, how to get out of handcuffs if the police arrest you and things like this. Like, it was all planned, right? And they had a culture planned too. This interesting thing is that the left kind of understands this culture thing. So they created all these cultures about like, okay, if somebody says something, then everybody else repeats it so that we can all hear it. So that it becomes like a megaphone. That was like one of the big, but that was like all planned from the very beginning, right? And yes, some of these things about the gender ideology and oppressor versus oppressed and all, that was all part of there. And basically, when Occupy Wall Street happened, those ideas were distributed to the activists, and then the activists turned around and started, pushing it more and more and more. And that's kind of how it started to come to a head. But then you're right. Over the last, and I wouldn't say the 2 years, I'd say it started about 2018, 2019. So a year or two before the pandemic, when it started to generate national headlines. Yes. So I think it would be interesting to talk to Elon Musk about that, because it seems to me like he kind of understands some of those things, but I see some deficiencies. He doesn't seem to be very discerning in what he's consuming and what he puts back out into the world. He just kind of posts whatever he feels like, and sometimes it ends up being harmful things, I think. And I try to incorporate that here. I mean, I'm a little ADHD, so I'm going to be prone to saying stuff that, might be irrelevant or just as what I feel at the time. But I try to make a conscious effort to say, what is the culture that I want to have on my stream? What is the culture that I want to have in my family? That's why I've focused in so much on values, that we have integrity, excellence, and teamwork is the key values of our stream, right? Because that's, the culture that we want to have. We want to have a culture that's based on empiricism, that we're looking at hard data about what works and doesn't work, instead of just blindly following some price action ideology that has absolutely no evidence behind it. You would have had your take profit at 46. Oh, were you in a trade that you were in a short that you gave up on? I don't know. How concerned should I be about the decline that we've had? The chart's being a little bit deceptive because this isn't even 10 points. But they're still selling here after the first 15 minutes or so. Although I expect the S&P 500 will probably still be pretty tight. And while we did see the treasuries come up towards those highs, things have definitely evened out. So it kind of looks like we had a down move, they recovered it, and now the treasuries are kind of back to not doing anything. Although through that, we did get the yield curve is steeper. I'm not politically on the right, I'm just anti-left. Does that count? Well, so I think one of the things on that's an interesting thing that for you to bring up, okay? I think that the reality is that in terms of your approach to the world, there is right and there is left and there is no middle ground. It's just that some people don't understand either the politics or themselves well enough to actually know which side of that divide they stand on. And the thing is that those lines are not quite where people think that they are. So when I say right versus left, what do I mean? So the extreme of right wing, well, it always goes back to the French Revolution. This is where these terms came from, right? The French Revolution is the best example of it. After they had the French Revolution and they had their first a parliament or House of Representatives or whatever they called it. I think it was the House of Commons, wasn't it? There was the left and the right. And the right-wing people were kind of giving more deference to the royalty. These were people that tended to be more rich or were maybe royalty before, okay? And were giving more deference to traditions and all of that. And then the left side were the people that were like revolution. Whatever structures that we have, we should completely tear them down. We want the new, right? Okay. So the difference between right and left is actually down to how you approach progress, right? Do you radically come in and tear everything down and just start with something completely different? Or do you take a methodical approach where we look at what has worked in the past and we acknowledge the successes that we've had and make incremental changes based on things where we have really good evidence to suggest that there should be a change, right? That's basically what it comes down to is how do you approach progress, right? Right wing or more conservative tend to be more about paying respect to what we've already built, whereas the left does not. The left is totally okay with just destroying what we already have and trying something completely new. Okay. So the question is, where do you actually stand on that? And the thing is that there is, to some extent, there are people that are both left and right within the Republican and Democrat parties, right? Because really, right now, the Republican and Democrat parties are more about what you think the role of government should be in your life, right? Do you think that we need more government and more regulation? Or do you think that we need less government, essentially? Less government, but maybe more efficient government. That's kind of the Republican argument versus the Democrat argument. So you can be a quote-unquote liberal Republican, or let's say you could be a quote-unquote left-wing Republican. Right? I am kind of, because I'm ADHD, a little bit predisposed to destroying everything and starting from scratch. But I've learned from experience to be more right-wing, essentially. Like I've learned, we've got to learn from our past and make incremental changes. Tends to work best in complex systems. So ultimately, I am right-wing. My assertion is that incremental change works better for complex systems in our modern world, and that radical change no longer makes sense. Radical change was maybe a good model, when it was like ancient Greece, but not today when we have all of these complex global structures that are involved. Right? So which side of the aisle do you sit on that? A lot of people haven't actually thought about it. But I think that most people that kind of consider themselves moderates actually fit more on the right-wing side of that divide, right? But they just don't necessarily agree with Republicans on certain things. So they wouldn't want to be, termed as Republicans. Okay, so when it comes to like the whole gender ideology battle, for instance, it's left wing, right? They're saying, listen, there is this structure out there based on gender, called the patriarchy, and we're going to tear it down. And there's absolutely no thought to if what we're replacing it with is actually good and effective, or any of that. Is just, we're going to destroy what existed and we're going to bring in something that's left wing, right? Most people aren't down with that. Most people aren't actually down with that. Most people are kind of like, well, but we actually need to think about what is actually true and not true, and do a little bit more serious science about it. And, yeah. Most people tend to be more right-wing. Right-wing should be more popular. But the Republicans have other positions that are not. Basically, the issue is, when it comes to American politics, is that what is right-wing, what is like giving deference to the past, and what has worked and whatnot, has been government programs. That was the whole FDR thing, right? So the country moved towards having social programs, essentially. And Republicans still don't like the social programs, but having some social programs is a part of the right wing now. It would be what I would consider a right-wing ideology, because that's what those already exist. We already have them, and we've had them for like 50 years, right? And so there's a lot of people that will be like, yes, I think that we should still have Social Security. I think that we should still have unemployment insurance. We should still have X, Y, and there's people in the Republican Party that don't want those things, right? So the Republican versus Democrat divide is not strictly right versus left wing, is it? Right? It's more about the role of government in your life. I think they don't even know how to replace it, and sometimes of course they don't know the full consequences of it. Like that's my whole thing is where I came up. This is going to sound so stupid, okay? But this was the turning point for me when I understood this, because I always knew what right and left wing was. Like I remember learning about it in high school when we studied the French Revolution and everything. But I didn't really think of it in terms of, okay, when I want to make progress, how do I go about it? Okay. And the way that I learned this was from watching Blizzard try to balance StarCraft 2. I know it sounds so stupid, but I'm dead serious here. So when StarCraft 2 came out, I was kind of doing website work for StarCraftLegacy.com. I didn't do nearly as much as I wanted to, but I did a little bit of work for them. I helped them out a little bit. And I just happened to come into a fortuitous time because I didn't know that this was going to happen, but this was just before they announced StarCraft 2. So I knew that StarCraft 2 was going to be announced about a week before it happened. And I was like bound by NDA to not talk about it. So I knew the trailer was coming, and when it came and everybody saw it and their minds were blown, I was like, I knew it was coming, right? And so because of those connections and stuff, I was in the StarCraft 2 beta from like the very beginning. And I played very, very heavily during the StarCraft 2 beta too, by the way. And when the game actually came out, I basically stopped playing. I thought that StarCraft 2 was going to be like my thing for the next 10 years, but then I didn't really enjoy the game and I gave up on it. And the thing that really caused me to like lose interest in it was that there would be unit imbalances. Like in StarCraft 2, you just create these little death balls where all of the units move together as one big group. It seems really unnatural, and it made certain units like way overpowered. Like you could make these marine balls that were just like you just couldn't defeat them. It was crazy, right? And so then Blizzard would come in and they would try and make all of these radical changes. They would say, well, people aren't using this unit the way that we want, and they're not using this unit the way that they would want. So they would completely change all of the stats for a large number of things to try and push the usage of those units towards what they thought that they were supposed to be. And I realized that really what they should have been doing is they should have been saying, okay, I see this problem. I'm going to make this one small change here that we know has to be made, and then see how everything sorts out. And then maybe 2 weeks later, then we can kind of reassess and see what else. And you need to make small incremental changes. But because they kept going big with it, they were never able to find an equilibrium and actually get a balanced game that was fun. And that was where I started to become right wing. The deeper I got into it, because after that point I just became more and more interested in systems like the market. What are mathematical properties about markets that are different from a random walk that exist purely because of the rules of the game, right? It's understanding the system as it works and behaviors that emerge from the rules. Right, that's market microstructure. And once you start to understand that, then you kind of come in and you say, well, if I want to make a change to the market, I shouldn't come in and say we're no longer going to use a limit order book and then change all of this, and just completely rebuild the system, because there's so much to know about the system. And if I make a new system, there's just going to be a whole nother world of stuff to know that you couldn't possibly know without years of learning and studying it. It takes years of learning and studying to understand this system, and then you're just going to go and completely rebuild a new one from scratch. That doesn't make much sense, does it? Like the one change that I would like to make, I think that they should make changes to the mark-to-market rules so that your market impact is factored into the mark-to-market rules, because we have these situations where there are these funds that can pyramid. And as their position goes up, they just increase the size of their position. And eventually that position can get so large that they are basically, the position is destined to collapse. That, if it goes down one day and then after that, they will have to unwind the whole thing, and they can't stop it. And that's because the amount of margin that they're given is more than they should actually have, because it doesn't factor into the impact of their trades. I would just make that one change. And then let it go for a few years and see where we come out to, instead of trying to rebuild the whole thing. It's just crazy. Conservative parties not realizing that people are mostly conservative when they grow up has left a lot of room for populism on the right wing. Take a look at what's happening in Europe. Well, yeah, I think that people can be predisposed to be left wing or right wing, but as you become a parent, it makes you more right wing, right? Because there's two things about being a parent that I think does it. One is the shift of your worldview to be completely about this other person. So now your child matters more than anything else. So that really becomes a big thing. And especially if you understand these things about what you're consuming and all of that, right? You as a parent want to give your child the best chance for success. And you get very upset when you have other people coming in trying to upset that system that you're trying to build that you believe is in the best interest of your child. So there are people on the left that they just want to straight up replace parents, right? But then the other side of it is that parents also understand that as much care as they take with their children, it doesn't turn out the way that they expect ever. That the world is so complicated. And so they understand that you can't just come in with this radical plan to completely redesign society and expect that to come out the way that you want it to. It almost never does. Because you tried it with your kids and your kids didn't completely do what you expected, right? It's more complicated than that. So yes, having children does tend to move you right. And then the thing is that you kind of need both in society, right? Because if everybody was pure right wing, then we would still be, in feudalism. What games are you playing right now? I don't really play any games right now. I guess I played some Minecraft over the weekend. I've been trying to set up the world so that the kids can come in and we can just go and kill the Ender Dragon together, and and I want it so that, because one of the things that we'll do is you can play it like cross-platform now. So I can be playing it on my computer and my wife can be playing it on her phone. But it's kind of hard to do stuff on the phone, especially survival mode. So I've got it all set up so that they're perfectly safe, right? So that they can go to where they need to go and participate without having to worry about getting killed by things. I studied sociology years ago and got systematically brainwashed at university. Yeah. Well, so I think that one of the things that we need to think about, if you're with me so far, is, okay, how do we build that neural network in kids so that they can be discerning enough when they go to college that they don't just get warped by bad information, right? So basically, they have to be taught how to filter and process information on their own before they get to college. And that's kind of the funky thing about it, right? Because it used to be that college was where we taught you to think, right? All school was about pumping you with all of this information that gave you the possibility to be able to do these things. And in order to build your mind. But, you don't necessarily use all of the math most people don't use all the math that they learn in high school, but it exercises your brain to so that they can perform on that level, right? But we don't teach them. We just, give you the problems and you have to solve the problems. This is all about giving the right answer. And then the actual thinking on your own and doing things like taking risks and being entrepreneurial and all of this, that was the domain of college. Actually, right? College was where you learn to think. And so what we're doing is we're sending all of these kids over to college that don't know how to think, and then the college just brainwashes them. So we have to get them to where the kids are thinking on their own before they get to college, so that when they go into that class and their professor is telling them something and they'll go, oh, wait, okay, what is the view of the world that this professor is trying to impose upon me? Is this a view of the world that actually helps me and my people? Does separating everything out into oppressors versus oppressed and the people that were oppressed in the past need to be given the power now, is that actually going to lead to a better, more successful society? No, because it sets you up to always try and see yourself as a victim. And that's not a way forward for success in the world, right? So we've got to develop that in people before they get to college. But thanks for stopping by, Sohan. That was a really long rant. But that was the thing that's always on my mind, frankly. It's always on my mind. I'm always thinking about that. I wanted to talk about that. Wanted to talk about the computer. I mean, we kind of talked about the swing trading thing, right? No, we didn't really talk about the swing trading thing. I have this long in the S&P 500, and it's been going pretty okay. And the more that I do this, the more that I'm like, there's some real advantages to swing trading it, and I should probably do more of the swing trading. Because this, I could just take this one trade here on leverage, and that would be like 30% for the year, and I'd be done. Like I built I used to like trade on a spreadsheet, and when I did that one, I like 10x'd my money. But I did it all with swing trades. I did it all by identifying spots where I thought the S&P 500 was going to start rallying from there based on the flows and going long. I didn't understand that that's what I was doing at the time, but I think that's ultimately what I was doing. And I'm realizing, yeah, you want to utilize it in your day trading too, but it actually makes more sense to swing trade it. Or which I would say is like the more success that you have, the more it makes sense for you to just continually move higher time frame. And I'm like, I'm at the point where I should be doing higher time frame. I should be having more swing trades on. I think I kind of got scared out of it because I tried doing some of that in the treasuries and kind of got burned for it. I need to go back, put a little bit more capital into it, and just try and make these swing trades, because I do not think that I've gotten one wrong in a while. Came for the order flow, stayed for the rants. Well, it's only worth bringing up because now you can apply all of this to trading, right? How can I create a culture and a model of the world that's going to lead me to successful trading? Well, the model that people built is, I'm going to go and find somebody that's already had success with this, and I'm just going to copy what they do, and that's what's going to bring me success. That's the model that most people have, right? But it doesn't work because the market is competitive. So what's the model that we need to build? The model that we need to build is, the market is competitive. I need to be able to develop an edge that not everybody has. That means that I'm going to have to discover stuff on my own. So in order to be successful, I have to have all of the tools and skills to be able to perform that effective research. That's a sophisticated thing, but that's what I'm going to have to do. And I'm going to have to incorporate information from other people because, otherwise I'm just kind of digging in the dark. I kind of need to have some idea where to dig, but I can't just go off of what somebody else has said, because they could be lying. They could, maybe they've had success, but they don't understand why they were successful, which is very, very common, by the way. So you can't just take what other people say at face value. You have to use empirical evidence, right? So it is a framework and a culture that's based on, we need empirical evidence. Since the market is competitive, I have to be able to come up with that empirical evidence on my own. That's the model that you need. But it's all the same principles. It's all a question of what is the culture that will lead me to success. And then, working together with other people to make it happen. That's the other part, is right. We build that culture, and now we have a stream where we have people that all are in on that culture, and I put it in your face all the time, so that the people that don't want to do that, the people that don't believe in empirical evidence, that don't want to work together, that don't want to be competitive, They just want to go and follow some template, won't like the stream, so that we get the people that have the culture that we know will make us effective. That's why I talk about it. And yes, it is kind of the one deficiency in that is that some left-wing people would probably be dissuaded, and we do need them. When you start your hedge fund account, okay. You know what we can do is, so I we were talking a while ago about like, I'd like to do something that like really kind of would upset the balance with like the combines and stuff like that. I think it can go even bigger, right? So you can do something called a commodities trading pool, and the rules for a commodities trading pool are very different from the rules for like starting a hedge fund. And as long as your pool is less than like, I think it's 15 people. I think it's if your pool is less than 15 people and you, the manager of the pool, are not receiving any compensation for running the pool, then you don't have to be registered with the CFTC, and like your regulations are a lot less stringent. So basically what I can do is we can set up a commodities trading pool, and then you guys could contribute money to the pool, and then we could come and do degenerate things with it, right? What are your opinion and thesis on the market on the fact that Jinping has an executive dinner meeting and wanted to make peace / stop cold / hot war with the United States? Well, the fact is that they had a meeting. I don't think that we can necessarily surmise for certain what his real intentions are. It seems to me that what China believes is that the world should be multipolar. That the way that the world has been, and probably still is today, is that the United States is basically in control of the world and kind of imposes its ideas of what the world should be on everybody else. And China wants there to be balance against that, so that you've got opposing powers that kind of meet each other in the middle. But aren't imposing anything on each other, right? Which totally makes sense. It's just that Xi also believes some things that are very antithetical to what we believe here in the West. And, ultimately the ideals of communism are antithetical to the ideals of freedom that we have in the West. So I don't know if that's going to go anywhere or not. I'll tell you where the big battle is going to be is over Trans-Pacific Partnership again. I can already see it gearing up. It's funny to watch Reddit and how gullible they are, because I remember back in the day when it was under Obama that Reddit was very anti-Trans-Pacific Partnership. And now the stories are starting to come up. They're trying to do it again. And Reddit's like full-throated support for it. It's like, now you guys are being propagandized again. Because many people believe that a Trans-Pacific Partnership would just accelerate jobs moving from the United States abroad, right? So that's probably going to be the flashpoint. But I don't know. I still kind of... I don't think that Joe Biden's going to get a second term. I don't think that Joe Biden's going to get a second term. Some people think that the Democrats are going to throw Joe Biden under the bus, or Joe Biden's going to die or something, and then they'll rush Gavin Newsom to the forefront, which I also don't think would happen. I think that running Gavin Newsom would be like such a total disaster for them. So, but I have a really hard time seeing Biden becoming president, like, based on current polling and stuff. Like, if the election was held today, Donald Trump would probably beat him. So China may have to deal with a second Trump presidency, and I'm not quite sure what they'll do about that. Yeah. Well, and the whole thing about like she comes over and they have this big super important meeting with him, and then at the end of the meeting Joe Biden's like, but he's a dictator and all this stuff, right? Like, so basically Biden just did what his handlers told him to do, and it wasn't really genuinely what he believes. So that's my take on it, right? Do you ever read order flow on the tape? So like my interpretation of using the tape would be like using the summary tape here. So Jigsaw has a summary tape feature. We should be on December, right? Yes. Like, why would it give me the option for September? I can't really see it very well, but basically it shows me every time price changed and how many buys and sells there were overall, right? I'm sure that if I used it enough that I would get a hang of it and I could trade based just on that. But I mean, there's really not a reason to be honest with you. There's really not a reason to, because we have all of this great technology that shows it to us in a much more effective way just looking at it on the DOM. Do you think a Bloomberg terminal is worth it? 100%. 100% is worth it. There are things that I could do here in the treasuries that I think would be profitable. I don't know if they would pay for the terminal, but they would work that I can't do without the terminal. Data that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. There's also news and things about individual stocks that you can get from Bloomberg Terminal, and that would pay for itself. So yeah, Bloomberg Terminal is totally worth it, but it's super, super expensive. Now, don't confuse the Bloomberg Terminal with a Bloomberg Digital subscription. I had the Bloomberg Digital subscription for the website, and it's basically trash. I mean, I'm sure for the average person, it's okay. You know, just the average person that wants to read news and wants to read news that's like financially focused. But for somebody that's trying to like trade off of that information, I found it to be useless. Bloomberg Digital subscription. Spend that money on a news squawk like Financial Juice or News Squawk. And if you do that, then use it to pay for like other kinds of analysis, like maybe Macro Hive or Wall Street Journal might be. I haven't tried Wall Street Journal. That's the next one that I'll try. We'll build this machine. Hopefully we do it this month. Maybe I decide not to. And then after that, we'll save up and get a Wall Street Journal subscription to try that. And then I'll make a video about that, comparing Bloomberg Digital to the Wall Street Journal and CNBC probably. Some of the criteria for your research. Well, so there's a really simple test, okay? The question I'm always asking is, will this information predict future orders? That's the key question that I'm always asking. I want to know, where is the money coming from and going to? And does this information possibly tell me how investors might do that? Right? So the best information that you can get out there is from Zero Hedge. I have the Zero Hedge subscription. I really like it. And they will occasionally show you reports from like Goldman Sachs flow analysts. And that's where they go through and they say, based on our models, here's what CTAs are likely to do. Here's what long short funds are likely to do. And that's all information that I find to be extremely indicative of where things are going. And this swing trade that I have over here on the left, that's been doing pretty well, although we are on the downside in the S&P 500. So we'll see if we get another update or where that ends. I'm going to hold it until the end of the first week, till about December 8th. Okay, and then we can judge it there. But that trade was based almost exclusively off of analysis from the Goldman Flow analysts. Okay, but that's the question: is how could this information predict future orders? That's what it all is. People read that, they have this information, and then they go and they make trades based off of it, right? So how would that work? How would that lead to them doing that? Is the question. Because there is a lot of financial junk food out there, sort of a thing, that it does not lead to future orders, right? It'd be nice to hear your opinion about this strategy. I've never tried doing that. The built-in NinjaTrader strategy builder, I'm not a fan of. The thing is, let me tell you what, man. If you want to be doing things on the technical side, that is to say, quantitative side, you want to do like a quantitative strategy, you want to be building an automated strategy, you really want to code. And I don't think that it's that difficult to learn how to code. And I think that there's a lot of tools out there that are made for people that are like, oh, I don't know how to code, so I can use this tool instead. And I think that when you do that, you're kind of selling yourself short, because I don't think that learning how to program your own strategy in NinjaTrader 8 is as difficult and out of reach as most people think it is. And I have a few videos. I have one video that's like how to debug, one that's like the basic methods in NinjaTrader that you need to know, one about data structures, and then I have a bunch of other videos that are like, so I have these videos that are like, here, I'm going to analyze this strategy, and I always show you the code in those so that you can basically work out, how do I actually set up a strategy to do this sort of a thing? I would just program it yourself. I wouldn't waste time with strategy builders. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, the big innovation these days is machine learning, right? Like, how are you going to be on the cutting edge? Well, you're going to have to know enough to be able to do it yourself. So start learning now if that's really what you want to do, instead of relying on waiting long enough for somebody else to include it in their tool. Good grief. Bob Iacino on Twitter that says, does anyone else think that Sam Altman, the former CEO of OpenAI, does anyone else think that Sam Altman looks like Jerry Seinfeld and Kramer had a baby? Or is it just, it absolutely looks like that? Yes. I totally see it. Oh, man. Okay, so I got about a few seconds ago the Department of Justice to announce cryptocurrency enforcement actions today, says Bloomberg. And I am seeing Bitcoin sell off more hard this morning. So it looks like that sell off was people anticipating this news. We'll see like what it is and if they dive even further off of that. Could be interesting, although I suspect because we were seeing stuff about Kraken yesterday, so maybe it will be about Kraken. I'm guessing it will be about exchanges, though. Would be my guess, because that's where they've kind of been focusing their efforts. Yes. So on Zero Hedge, let me see if I can give you an example here. Give you a little preview. Zero Hedge doesn't pay me. Actually, Zero Hedge has me blocked on Twitter because I told them things about cryptocurrencies that they didn't like. But they, I still totally promote it because I think it's a good website. Of course, you have to be able to discern. Like, this is the whole thing. Is like, how can we? We need a model so that we can judge information and know what to include and what not, essentially. So I already gave you like a really key piece, right? How does this information lead to future orders? There's a lot of content on Zero Hedge that's like purely ideological and doesn't help you whatsoever, okay? But usually the ones that are like exclusives. So this one, the Market Ear, they used to be on Twitter. And now you only get their content through having the Zero Hedge subscription. And these are really good. Okay. But then there's also ones that are just like member exclusives. It doesn't look like they've done one today. That one was a political article, which is kind of interesting. It looks like they haven't been posting a whole lot this week. Or at least yesterday they didn't. I'll always read these ones that are like synopsis of the economic news that we got. Did they really not post any? They must already be on vacation. Yeah, because like, where's all... Okay, so here's a good example. So this was posted on Sunday is the last good one. But it's a premium article, right? So this is one that you don't get if it's the free one. And here, this is Goldman Prime Brokerage, which is basically the brokerage that all of the hedge funds and so forth talk to, right? And they do analysis of what flows they've been seeing and what flows they anticipate to see. So this is extremely predictive of what the market is going to do or has done. U.S. equities saw the largest net selling in 8 weeks, driven by long and short sells across both macro products and single stocks. Single stock short flow increased for a 15th straight week. From a sector's perspective, hedge funds ramped up selling in staples, which was net sold at the fastest pace since April of 2020. Staples has now been net sold in 5 of the 6 weeks. So they are selling overall, but the selling is happening in a defensive sector, essentially. But it's curious that after a pretty big rally, that the smart money seems to still be selling. That's interesting information, and it just goes down in fundamental long short gross leverage rose 1.6% to 198.3, which is a 98th percentile on a 1-year basis. While the U.S. fundamental long net leverage fell negative 1% to 54.9. Okay. So long short people are using a lot of leverage right now. Macro products and single stocks. So they're saying that people are both selling like on the indexes, and in people that just buy individual stocks are selling as well. Right. Sectors, shares trading, futures sales trading, and strategies. Large rebalancing in the CTA space amidst these market moves. The CTA/trend followers were set up short equities and bonds coming into the month, which is offsides to the large price action we were covering as a result. Month-to-date performance for this space is down 4.3%. So the CTAs got hammered by the action last week, essentially, and were covering their shorts, essentially. We estimate 140 billion of global short length has been covered since the positioning low at the start of the month. Okay, so that's important because they're not just telling you what they're doing, but how much. And now you have numbers that you can start to use to say, okay, I think that if X happens, then I think that X billion amount of money will come into the market, right? From here, we expect the buying to continue for the next 1 week or more in a baseline scenario, as overall signals have flipped enough to establish net long positions. The relevant areas and pivot points currently are around the 4350 area in the S&P 500. Not every global or even US market is set up similar, however, and some are expected to see some catch-up buying more than others in the baseline in small cap and Russell. For instance, while short trend has looked positive, the medium and long-term areas are not until 1820 and 1925. I think that is, those numbers were the Russell. And here's probably the most important spot for us, right? We estimate bonds have seen covering also of 47 million slash basis points of DVL1 buying in the last month, 17 million in the last week, and 35 million basis points we expect for the next 1 week in the baseline scenario. Unlike in equities, however, we estimate the overall short position has been fully covered and longs are being established. We estimate overall bonds length is still short and most global medium longer signals are still negative. The key medium-term pivot point for Treasury futures is around 110.5, which is a little bit higher than here, corresponding to an on-the-run 10-year rate of approximately 4.15 to 4.2, and the short-term pivot area around 107.9 futures. Okay, so what are they saying? They're saying that based on the flows, that the treasuries will continue to buy from here. That's why I had a swing over in this one instrument too, but they stopped me out of that one. Okay, so that's the sort of stuff that you get with the premium subscription. Now, if you buy their $100 subscription, I don't have that one, but you just get even more stuff like this from like Wall Street analysts. It's not really, so you're really not paying for zero hedge. You're paying for access to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Citigroup and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So yeah, useful information. I lost a lot of respect for Bob a long time ago when he endorsed some secret algo called Pit. Oh, I bet. I don't think I've ever seen another influencer in the space that didn't promote or say something that I disagreed with. And I've decided that it just kind of comes with the territory and that I shouldn't hold it so much against people. Not that I'm going to do that. I'm only going to endorse products that I use and believe are useful to my audience. And some algo like that, I know it's not. Maybe Bob doesn't know that stuff. He's probably not a programmer, so. Oh, hey, the treasuries did move a little bit higher here too, didn't they? Although that may have just been stop outs. I do see, like, if we come back to the flows, we got 30 minutes left. When we look at the cumulative delta, there's actually some gentle buying, right? So you see it here and you see it here, and the slopes of them are the same. So it looks to me like that there was a meta order buy starting from here, but that something came in and short-circuited it. Because they came in so aggressively, they had really strong impact, but then this guy, he just kept buying. He took it as an like, oh, okay, well, I'm willing to buy that, right? Or basically whatever this was, it didn't change this guy's mind that he needed to buy. So I don't know how much buying there would be, but that certainly puts me into, if I was going to take a trade, I would want to be long, right? Plus that matches up with the longer term flows that we know should be long, at least for the next short little bit. And I bet you that by the time this stream is done, sometime this morning, you probably get new stuff from Zero Hedge like that. So. What about FOMC today? Oh, that's right. We have the meeting minutes today, don't we? Yes, it will be a mover. Probably. In fact, I would say that, well, look, the last FOMC meeting basically is where this rally in the S&P 500 started from, right? So that's kind of a critical thing. Given that, seeing the notes and seeing what the FOMC was kind of saying, that probably has a larger chance than normal of, causing a big move in the markets. The release notes is always, I would say, a medium impact event. And it's probably the biggest thing this week, So. But, I won't be sitting here watching it, I'll just read what CNBC says about it afterwards, basically. Okay. Oh, yeah. I wanted to read this, so I was coming along this morning, and I saw this on Reddit. I thought was interesting. It's this. I should have done this early because this will probably get you guys going. Okay. The post on the Reddit r/day trading subreddit is perhaps you should give up. Lately, there have been 1,000 posts by hard-stuck noob traders asking questions like, what do you trade? How do you manage risk? Which YouTube channel would you recommend? Which broker do you use? Etc. Yeah, they ask that, which YouTube channel do you recommend a lot? And you guys never recommend me, so whatever. They're never going to figure it out. The comments section of such posts are filled with more hard-stuck noob traders benevolently giving advice, which is neither helpful nor followed by their own selves. To their own... Oh my gosh, this is hard to read. The comment sections of such posts are filled with more hard-stuck noob traders benevolently giving advice to their fellow hard-stuck noob traders, which is neither helpful nor followed by their own selves. Nor is that advice followed by their own selves. There would be some experienced traders who give genuine advice, which the author of the post will respond to with something like, thanks a lot, sir, you really helped me, and then promptly proceed to not follow a single word of said advice. What I cannot understand is, why is no one recommending just giving up? Unfortunately, it is highly unlikely that someone who has been practicing hard for a year and is still not making profit will ever reach... Okay, that's not true at all. But let's just go with read what he says. Unfortunately, it is highly unlikely that someone who has been practicing hard for a year and is still not making a profit will ever reach the lofty goal they have set for themselves, which is often to become a millionaire. Although there are some people who were struggling and somehow managed to reach a high net worth. Remember, these are rare exceptions and definitely not the norm. To me, it's truly depressing that a lot of these people genuinely believe that they can magically gain hundreds of thousands someday by just working really, really hard. Isn't it cruel to enforce this false belief? Should we really be convincing them to continue wasting time in a field that we know they will almost certainly never excel in? 100% I do. That's why I always tell people, look, even if you do really well at this as a retail trader, the rewards can still be quite underwhelming. You really should only do it if you enjoy it. Of course, pros aren't on Reddit. We don't give advice. No, yeah, it really seems to me like experienced traders are not on Reddit for whatever reason. Part of it is probably that, you know, you experienced traders are usually a little bit older, right? Like our audience is really more like 35 to 50. And so a lot of that age group are more like Gen Xers, and they never really got into social media like that, or certainly not Reddit. So that's probably part of it. I disagree with him on this, like, if you've been practicing hard for a year and still not made a profit, then you'll probably never will make a profit. Because I would say that it would probably take 2 years for you to even have a chance. Like, with what I'm talking about, especially like predictors of order flow, and, you know, it's a complicated thing, and I think that it takes at least 2 years to really develop that model in your head before you even stand a chance of making money. But the problem is that, you know, most of these people, they're just going with technical analysis, right? Like, this is the whole thing, is if it's technical, this is the thing that drives me crazy, is that if you have a strategy that is truly like a technical system, it should be really like black and white. It should be, these are the exact rules that you follow, and if you follow those exact rules, you'll make money. And if it's not, then, and it's more fuzzy, then like maybe the edge isn't in the technical analysis part, it's in the fuzzy part, right? And that shouldn't take a long time for a beginning trader to be successful with it. You should be able to give them the straight system, and they should be able to start seeing success with it right away. But the reality is that those systems don't work. Those you know, the market is too efficient for those to work. And so you've got all of these people that are trying to trade technical analysis, trying to convince a bunch of other people to try and trade technical analysis, and not having any success with it. That's what it is. Wow, I bet you there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this. Oh, wow. That's interesting. So, like, this post has 0 upvotes. Let me refresh to see if it's any different now. Yeah. This post has 0 upvotes, but the first comment has 73. So a lot of people are actually reading this thread. Let's see what they say. I bet you there's going to be a bunch of people that claim to be profitable and really actually aren't. Man, this whole post is wild. Why go to a public forum and ask questions to the public when you can just give up? Yeah, no shit. Most new traders aren't going to be successful. Most seasoned traders aren't either. And if they are, they aren't here, or they're here for casual reading. Why do kids play sports? Why not just tell all children to stop playing sports because they'll never be professional athletes? A lot of us hard-stuck noob traders are looking for resources that experienced traders have used and would suggest, or easy wins, or something that can help connect the dots for us. We all know we're struggling out here. We know we're bad at trading, and yeah, maybe we should give up, but why? Did you when it was hard? Did you when you didn't realize your gains? How did you learn to trade? Work hard, or were you just magically good at it? Nah. Maybe I'll make my post. Right, 2 to 3 years. Plus the psychological aspect stays with you forever, yeah. Lifetime struggle. The psychological aspect, basically, is what I think what Octavius is saying. You know, my post is going to be like, well, it's because you're all trying to trade technical analysis, which doesn't work. It's really what it is. It's a bunch of technical analysis traders trying to convince themselves that technical analysis works when it obviously doesn't. And the whole demeanor of the subreddit would be completely different if it wasn't all basically people trying to trade technical analysis. They really don't like this thread, but I think he has a decent point. I think that the day trading subreddit is mostly technical analysis traders trying to convince themselves that technical analysis works when all of the hard data that we have basically points to the opposite. That technical analysis doesn't work very well at all. Here's somebody that's claiming that they're profitable. Then he says, oh, and I get that. I get pure, let's see here. I've had some weirdos comment on my post with pure visceral hate when I mentioned that I trade for a living successfully. It's absolutely bizarre, but some people get irrationally triggered by this. They say things like, you will fail eventually, or you're just gambling, bro. The stock market is a random walk, or something to that effect. Well, let's go back and look at his post history, because I bet you that he hasn't been doing it 5 years. Hey, Akshay, you're coming in late. Well, it's an older account, so that helps. But, like, we're to... I'm sure at some point I'm going to find something about quote-unquote price action. I had a recruiter today who wanted me to work for Walgreen Boots. I told him I have an open short. Wait, what is Walgreen Boots? Oh, is that the name of Walgreens Pharmacy? Oh, I didn't know that Walgreens had a... I didn't know that the company that owns them was named something slightly different. That's interesting. You told them that you have an open short position. What did they want you to... What would they be recruiting you for, though? Well, that's also talk. This guy's talking to them about OpenAI a lot. Yeah, okay, there you go. Al Brooks talks about this exact strat. Okay, so it probably is price action. This commenter knows what's going on in the market because he's commenting on Jerome Powell and things like that. So he wanted me to work in their projections and supply chain division. I was like, what WTF is all that? That is kind of weird. That is really weird, actually. Because really you should be going and working for like one of the big commodities trading houses, right? if anybody was going to try and recruit you, I would think it would be one of them. No, I didn't take a trade. I'm watching this long here in the S&P 500. This selling here that we had about 15 minutes or so is a little interesting to me. Not quite sure where it originated from, but... This person is a software engineer. I wonder if we know this guy. His name is Weaves87. I'm starting, the more I'm reading this, the more I'm like, this is the kind of guy that would watch my stream. Although I do suspect he's trading price action. You know, we never got a clear reason for the selling in the treasuries. So I think the best theory is still that headline about a hostage swap in Gaza. But like, it looks like, you know, there's been a meta order buy in the market this whole time, and it's just never let up. So they just bought it right back up. See, here we go. Risk reward is good for just introducing the basic concept of risk management, but I think people might take it a little too far sometime. They lose sight of what the chart is actually showing them. It's obviously very useful when backtesting, as it is inherently mechanical and simple to model. It can indicate whether or not a strategy is actually worth pursuing in a live trading environment. Unfortunately, real live trading is anything but mechanical. If it were, we could all build our own algos and effortlessly extract wealth from the markets. Obviously, that isn't possible. There is some degree of nuance that you can't always model effectively in a simulation, and sometimes this nuance is where a lot of the profits come from. I set all my stop losses and take profits based on what the price action is showing. Yeah, there you go, it's price action again. No hard-carded point values anywhere. Sometimes the price structure indicates my stop needs to be 4 points, sometimes 6. Sometimes the price structure says my trade profit needs to be 8. Whatever looks like the market will give me. For every trade, I'm very fluid with adjusting my stop loss and take profit. If it looks like the market will give me more, I will move my take profit up very freely. And will move my stop loss up slowly. It looks like the market can't make up its mind. I will run my trades on a tighter leash and get more strict on them. I understand these little deviations from a backtest can be concerning if you're not 100% following your trading plan, but you have to get comfortable with the fact that you will need to occasionally deviate depending on what the market shows you. There are different market regimes and degrees of volatility. All of them require different approaches. This is correct. And for the commodity fund, I am not getting a job again because I left the industry. I would be overqualified. That's one of the biggest no-nos in trading hiring. Really? Because I would be way too prone in their estimation to exceed my duties. And yeah, let me backtrack here. There was a post on Reddit where somebody said, why are you guys encouraging people to continue trading? Shouldn't you just tell them to give up? And this person is saying, well, I've been profitable. And so now I'm like, okay, let's see where your profits are actually coming from. I suspect that he is trading price action with skewed risk rewards, and that he hasn't been trading long enough to really call, you know, he doesn't have a 5-year track record. I don't think that we'll find anything like that, but I am coming in here to be like, okay, what is he actually doing? And he is talking like he's a price action trader, but he definitely is better. Like, he definitely understands some things. He's not your average trader. For instance, he's talking about the non-farms payroll, for instance. So this guy is paying attention to the market and knows. But here he's talking about like the 200 simple moving average on a weekly chart. So he also is swing trading, so that on average I probably work around 10 hours per day trading day. If I'm not actively in a trade, then I'm watching the market, absorbing information, reading economic reports, and gaining a better understanding of what's going on with the quote price action, right? He uses the word price action a lot, so that's probably what he's doing. This sounds to me like somebody that's been around for a few years, but that he doesn't understand some of the other things that we understand. So you might still. Basically, I'm concerned that he would blow it at some point, but I don't know what kind of risk setup he's got going. Right? Usually, when these people are saying that they're making money, it's because they're taking excessive risk. I don't know how far to go back here. I want to see him talk about price action. He's not giving any of that sort of stuff. Like, this is the funny thing about it is, like, I found somebody that sounds like he's having success, and when I read his posts, it sounds like he actually is, like, he talks like somebody that is having success and doing things. And what do you see immediately? Oh, well, most of what he's talking about is about the market itself and, like, the economic news. And he's reading economic reports. He's reading analyst reports. And he's not just relying on the chart. So, right? He's not one of those people that would tell you, oh, just trade price action and you'll make money. But I still suspect, because he's used the term price action a few times, that he believes in the price action shtick. But I'm not seeing him I don't see him supporting that. The name seems familiar, so I'm kind of like, I wonder if I've run into this person before. Sometimes there's a couple of guys that I've run into that are, like, claim to be profitable and whatnot, and they're like total shitheads. They're almost always total shitheads. Oh, let's see here, 200. To be honest with you, I haven't done a whole lot of serious research on this, but it seems to me that technical analysis may be more useful on large time frames. Like, it seems to me that looking at things like the 200-day moving averages and so forth, that there may be some informational content that you can glean from those, but it's when you turn around and you try and do a 200-minute moving average and so forth that it just becomes completely useless. Yeah, by price action, he could just mean it being over under some moving average, being bullish, bearish, and trend. But he also did mention Al Brooks, so I would have to assume that he uses price action in the classical sense of, like, Al Brooks and so forth. But that's the thing, is whenever I find these people, I'll find them, they might still believe in the technical analysis, but they're never using purely technical analysis. And then the question that you pose to them is, okay, so if the technical analysis doesn't work on its own, and you have to combine it with your own study of the fundamentals of the market and so forth, how do you know that the edge that you have that's making you money is not the informational content rather than the combination of them? Could it be that all that technical stuff isn't helping you at all? Right? Because the thing is, there's really no way to know. Because what you're doing is not reproducible. But that's why I say, like, look, if you take some technical setup that you have, right, and that technical setup doesn't work on its own, then why would it work when you combine it with this extra thing? It doesn't work on its own in backtesting, so then you combine it with something that you can't backtest, then it's profitable. What makes you think that would work? There's no way to test it. And what I do is you know, there are some things that I would consider technical that I include with my trading, but they're things that are like we can prove. Volatility clusters, for instance, right? We know that. That's well proven. If I can't prove it in a study, then I ignore it, basically. If it's not in a study, or it's not a piece of information that I believe could lead to future orders, then I ignore it. My luck is my edge. Yeah. Sounds like he's taking on excessive risk. That's one of the things is I think most people would assume that taking on more risk would mean that you would lose more often, but actually it's the opposite, right? The more risk, the more that you put into something, the more likely it is to work out. But when it doesn't work out, the more you've lost. Hence, that tell nature of markets. I digress. Well, we talked about a lot of things today. I don't know what to put in our title for today. Are you following Trader Trump? That sounds vaguely familiar. I don't think I know the guy. I haven't studied them too much. But it's just you know, if you're not here on the stream every day, I apologize. I may not have been like clear what I'm talking about. So what you'll see a lot of people do is they'll trade and they'll say, if I get 4 points, then I'm going to take my profit. But then they'll let it go like 8 points against them. And when you do that, you come out with a ridiculous win rate, like upwards of 80%. And you can actually, if you kind of understand the type of market to trade in, you can be pretty successful with that for a long time. But usually what happens to these traders is they trade it for about a year and a half and then they'll blow the account. And they'll just like not tell anybody. or they'll say, oh, you know, I made this mistake, but it was my fault. They don't understand that it's inherent in the strategy for it to blow up like that. And so that's how you get all of these people running around claiming that price action works. It's because it works on a short time frame, but when you get a large enough time frame to account for the fat-tailed nature of markets, then you see that it doesn't actually work. But I suppose that being able to make money on a 1 or 2 year time frame is better than not being able to make money at all ever, right? If you can just get into it as an investor, if it goes too much, yeah, exactly. Well, I wonder, because I've been doing really well with this swing trade, actually. Like, everything just seems to be pointing me towards Seth. You need to take longer time frame trades. Because basically the point that I've gotten to now is I would say that I still kind of have a little bit of a fat-tailed nature with my strategy, but it's break even, right? It's like I'll do really, really well, and then I'll have a bad period and I'll lose most of it, if not all of it. But then I'm just back to break even, and then I recover there, and then I start making money again, right? So I'm just constantly going between like 0 and maybe $500 profit or whatever on this tiny account. And the account is drawing down, but only because of the data fees, essentially. So like, that's not bad. But then I turn around and I'm like, yes, but if I was swing trading, I probably would have doubled the account by now. So I should just swing trade. Are you really making money on a risk-adjusted basis? I don't know. Probably not. But I just think that we're doing people a disservice by saying, oh, I've made money in the last month, I'm a profitable trader. I think that that there needs to be this qualifier, like I've been profitable for 5 years, right? Because if somebody's been profitable for 5 years, I want to know how they did it. But everything else I can probably guess. Probably know what they're doing, and I don't want to do those things. Anyways, I gotta get going. Title. Today has kind of been a consolidation day. So I don't know how to describe this. That we had like a freak sell and then recovery today, but markets consolidate ahead of FOMC minutes. Grants our retainers. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Stay excellent, team.